Mr. Speaker, I rise to update this Honorable House on the work of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, known as the Inclusive Framework on the Base Erosion and Profit Shifting. Mr. Speaker, the G20 commissioned the OECD to address base erosion and profit shifting, or BEPS, that had, in the view of the G20, increased because of the increased digitization of the global economy. In their opinion, this made it harder for the tax administrations of countries to collect corporate income tax within their proper jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, in March of 2018, the Inclusive Framework, working through its task force on the digital economy, issued its Tax Challenges Arising from Digitization interim report of 2018, which recognized the need for a global solution. Work continued on this initiative, and in January of 2019, members of the Inclusive Framework agreed to examine proposals in two pillars, which could form the basis for a consensus solution to the tax challenges arising from digitization. Mr. Speaker, Pillar 1 is focused on nexus and appropriate profit allocation, while the core aspect, Pillar 2, relates to a global minimum corporate income tax intended to address remaining BEPS issues. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda has been an active Inclusive Framework member, working towards an appropriate outcome which include the essential elements in Pillar 2 as initially outlined in the Inclusive Framework's thinking. This included the notion that all jurisdictions have the right to create tax systems which are appropriate for their economies, whether or not such tax systems include or does not include a corporate income tax. Mr. Speaker, G7 leaders met in early June of 2021 in the UK prior to the scheduled July 1st Inclusive Framework meeting. They agreed to a high-level Pillar 2 framework, which included the establishment of a global minimum tax of at least 15% to be applied on a country-by-country basis. G7 urged the OECD and the steering group of the Inclusive Framework to endorse the G7 agreement and promote it to its members of the Inclusive Framework. Mr. Speaker, on July 1, 2021, the Inclusive Framework met, and 130 of its 139 members supported the high-level Pillar 2 framework agreed to by the G7, and set a timeline of October 2021 to create and finalize the technical details. 2 of the outstanding 9 members indicated their support in the days following the meeting. Therefore, 132 members currently support the July 1, 2021 Inclusive Framework Statement. Mr. Speaker, at the July 10, 2021 G20 Finance Ministers meeting, all G20 ministers endorsed the July 1 statement of the Inclusive Framework. This agreement now establishes the basis for conducting the outstanding technical discussions. Mr. Speaker, with respect to Pillar 1, initial estimates conclude that approximately 80 multinational enterprises worldwide would qualify as in scope of Pillar 1 for purposes of being subject to partial profit reallocation under the terms of the agreement described in the Inclusive Framework public statement. The Pillar 1 agreements allow for an exclusion to apply to regulated financial services companies and certain natural resources companies. The details of these exclusions will be determined in the upcoming technical phase of the negotiations. Mr. Speaker, it is this technical phase, which will run from July to October, that all countries, including Bermuda, are now focused. Pillar 2 will be central to our considerations. As we have in the past, the Ministry of Finance will continue to work closely with our industry stakeholders and other strategic partners to advocate for technical details that are in Bermuda's interest and seek to enhance Bermuda's competitive position. Mr. Speaker, I believe that it is important to reiterate certain key points of my press statement of July the 2nd, 2021, the day following the publication of the Inclusive Framework Statement. These remarks reinforce Bermuda's position as a quality international financial center that appropriately plays its part on the global stage, and I quote, "As a country committed to transparency, cooperation, and high levels of compliance with international standards, the government of Bermuda joined the statement on a new framework for international taxation arising from the OECD, Inclusive Framework meeting of July 1, 2021, and looks forward to supporting its ongoing technical discussions ahead of the G20 Finance Ministers meeting in October of 2021. Bermuda has been actively involved in ongoing discussions relating to this initiative to present positions that reflect the national interests and that of our various stakeholders. As part of that approach, we recognize the need to join with other members of the Inclusive Framework to reach this position supported by a significant majority of the membership. We fully intend to remain an active participant in the ongoing work of the Inclusive Framework to complete the development of an appropriate plan. We have noted areas of concern at a technical and practical level, which we look forward to working to resolve constructively in the months ahead." End quote. Mr. Speaker, we will press on to do the work that is required for continued success. You will recall that earlier this year, the government tabled legislation to embody the new Tax Reform Commission. This was approved by the legislature. Mr. Speaker, in due course, I will appoint persons to serve on the Tax Reform Commission, whose work will include various domestic issues and, as appropriate, consideration and analysis of the finally agreed full package of the two BEPS pillars. I therefore anticipate the Tax Reform Commission may not engage in the full scope of its work until after October 2021, when the technical aspects of the two BEPS pillars are completed by the Inclusive Framework and endorsed by the G20 meetings. Mr. Speaker, it is important to highlight that the work of the Commission and subsequent decision-making will reflect the culture of collaboration, innovation, and communication which has contributed to the success of this jurisdiction. In conjunction with industry and other key strategic partners, Bermuda will continue to look for opportunities and employ strategies that are beneficial to individuals and businesses and allow our island home to effectively compete in this ever-changing marketplace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.